Just beside the Forbidden City in Beijing stands a grand temple, majestic yet forgotten by most visitors. It was built for the emperor's dream of internal rule, but these walls have witnessed more than prayers. They have seen the fall of an empire and the dawn of a new age. Hello everyone, hope you are having a wonderful day. I am standing in front of the Imperial Ancestral Temple of Beijing, also known as Taimiao. This magnificent complex was built in 1420 by the third emperor of the Ming Dynasty, Emperor Yongle. It was here that both the Ming and the Qing dynasties cherished their ancestors' spirit tablets and held their grand state rituals. If you ever come to Beijing, this is one of the places I truly recommend you to visit. For most local residents and university students in Beijing, the Imperial Ancestral Temple, or Taimiao, is a familiar and popular place to visit. But for visitors from other parts of China or from abroad, this temple often remains a hidden gem, a place full of history, yet surprisingly peaceful and uncrowded. The entrance ticket costs only 2 yuan, and it's definitely worth a visit if you want to feel the calm side of Beijing. In 1420, the third emperor of the Ming Dynasty, Emperor Yongle, built this temple together with the Forbidden City and the altar of earth and grain. A few years earlier, he had overthrown his nephew, the Jianwen Emperor, during a civil war known as the Jingnan Campaign. After moving the capital from Nanjing to Beijing, Yongle wanted to secure the mandate of heaven and make his dynasty last for 1,000 years. To symbolize longevity and everlasting peace, he ordered about 400 cypress trees to be planted around the temple. More than 2 centuries later, during the Qing dynasty, another 300 cypress trees were added, continuing the same imperial wish that the empire would endure generation after generation. To the north stands a beautiful gate called the Five-Colored Glazed Gate. It marks the main entrance to the Taimiao complex. The gate is decorated with glass tiles in 5 different colors: red, green, yellow, blue, and gray, each color symbolizing harmony and balance under heaven. The Imperial Ancestral Temple was a place of strict imperial hierarchy and order. Even the stone bridges in front of the temple reflected the structure. Just like the spirit ways of the Ming and the Qing imperial tombs near Beijing, the central bridge was reserved exclusively for the emperor when he came to pay respect to his ancestors. The eastern bridge was for princes, and the western bridge was for high-ranking officials and nobles. No bridge, however, was ever used for spirit processions, because the spirits of emperors and empresses rested within the temple itself. The departed emperors and empresses were believed to need protection even in the afterlife. That is why this grand gate, called Jimen, or the Halberd Gate, was built. Similar gates can also be found at imperial tombs, where they were known as the Longen Gate in the Qing dynasty. But here at Taimiao, it was the Halberd Gate, named for the 120 ceremony halberds that once stood beside it, guarding the spirit of past rulers. At the end of the 19th century, China was shaken by the Boxer Rebellion. The conflict brought the Eight-Nation Alliance to Beijing, and their troops looted the temple, taking away or 120 halberds. Under the harsh peace treaty that followed, the Qing Empire lost both its dignity and its strength. From this gate onward, the decline of the dynasty had become irreversible. Wow, we have arrived at the main county yard of the Xiangdian, the Hall of Sacrificial Worship. This square looks very similar to the county yard in front of the Hall of Supreme Harmony inside the Forbidden City, wide, symmetrical, and filled with ritual meaning. The Hall of Sacrificial Worship was first built in 1420 during the reign of Emperor Yongle of the Ming Dynasty. It was later damaged by fire in 1541 under Emperor Qing and rebuilt 4 years later. The structure we see today still follows that Ming design, though much of its decoration was restored in the Qing Dynasty. The hall's massive columns are made of golden nanmu wood, a rare and fragrant hardwood once reserved for the imperial family. Ancient builders believed this wood could preserve blessings and good fortune for the emperors and their descendants. On the roof of the Hall of Sacrificial Worship, there hangs a great wooden plaque, yet deeply symbolic in Chinese history. In the late Ming Dynasty, there was a young ruler known as Emperor Tianqi Zhu Youxiao. He loved carpentry so much that he personally crafted furniture and wooden structures inside the palace, a rare, almost human patient for an emperor. So this plaque is made by Emperor Tianqi. A few years after his death in 1644, the Ming Dynasty collapsed, and the Qing Dynasty entered Beijing and took over the empire. The plaque we see today was written by the Shunzhi Emperor Aixingjue Fuling, the first Qing ruler to govern from Beijing. His calligraphy marked the restoration of this ancestral temple and the moment when a new dynasty claimed the rights of the old one. This hall not only witnessed the beginning of the Qing dynasty, but also its fall and visaged the end of Imperial China. The Hall of Sacrificial Worship itself dates back to the early 15th century, yet the interior displays we see today were installed after the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games. As part of a modern restoration project, inside you can see around 64 massive wooden columns supporting the ancient roof structure, which were all made of golden nanmu wood. In the past, the vast space was divided into several chambers, each dedicated to one emperor and his empresses. Taking the Qing dynasty as an example, before the last emperor, Xuantong, Mr. Henry Puyi, the spirit tablets of 11 emperors were brought here and enshrined inside the hall at carefully chosen ceremony days after their passing. During the imperial rituals, offerings of milk, yogurt, wine, and traditional Chinese food were placed in front of each shrine, and the milk and yogurt reflecting the Manchu nomadic tradition, where dairy products symbolized purity and respect for the ancestors. The spirit tablets of emperors and empresses were brought to this hall several times each year. At the beginning of every season, they received the rituals of respect known as seasonal offerings, and at the end of the year, a grand joint ceremony was held, the year-end sacrifice. There were also special occasions, imperial weddings, funerals, interments, victories in war, or major reforms. Whenever the empire faced great changes, the emperor would first come here to announce them to his ancestors. But when the emperor was too young to perform this rites himself, senior princes or the regent acted on his behalf. In 1911, as the Qing Revolution erupted, the Qing court drafted a new constitution in a last attempt to reform the empire. According to tradition, this momentous decision had to be reported to the ancestors. The young emperor Puyi was only 6 years old, so his father, the regent Prince Zaifeng, came here to the Hall of Sacrificial Worship to offer the oath and announce the plan. Yet just 2 months later, the Qing imperial family was forced to abdicate. This hall, which once heard wars for internal rule, thus witnessed the final fall of the Qing dynasty and of Imperial China itself. Except for the seasonal offerings, the year-end joint sacrifice, and other special announcement rites, the spirit tablets of the emperors and empresses were not kept in this front hall. They were normally ensherished in the Qing Dian, the real Hall of Repose, located directly behind the Hall of Sacrificial Worship. On major ritual days, the tablets were ceremonially brought forward to this main hall for the rites. Are the emperors and empresses feel lonely here? Of course not. Not only the spirit tablets of the emperors and empresses rested inside. In front of the Hall of Sacrificial Worship, there are 2 side halls, the eastern side hall and the western side hall. The eastern side hall holds the spirit tablets of nearly 13 imperial princes and nobles of the Qing dynasty, relatives of the emperors who were honored to be worshipped here. And on the western side hall, you can find the tablets of notorious officials who made great contributions to the founding and governance of the Qing Empire. Most of them were Manchu nobles and high officials. But among all these names, there is only one Han Chinese official, Zhang Tingyu, a loyal statesman who served the Kangxi, Yongzheng, and Qianlong emperors. He was the only Han Chinese who ever received the honor of being enshrined here. The famous statesman Li Hongzhang from Anhui province, who signed the Treaty of Shimonoseki after the First Sino-Japanese War, and later the Box Protocol with the 11-Nation Alliance. His spirit tablet was once proposed to be enshrined here as well, but many officials in the court strongly opposed the idea. They accused him of losing wars and making humiliating treaties. So Empress Dowager Cixi finally cancelled the plan. If he had been enshrined here, Li Hongzhang would have become the second Han Chinese official ever honored in this temple after Zhang Tingyu, and they both come from Anhui province. No matter if it's a royal family or a common family in China, people always honor their ancestors, even those who lived hundreds of years ago. At the very end of the complex, there is another hall, the Tiangmiao, or ancestral hall for remote forebears. Inside, the spirit tablets of 4 early ancestors of the Qing dynasty are enshrined here. Jingzu Takeshi, the father of Nuerhachi, Xianzu Jue Chang'an, his grandfather, Xinzu Fuman, his great-grandfather, and Zhaozu Mengtemu, his great-great-grandfather. Their tablets normally remain inside the back hall. At the beginning of each season, officials came here to offer rituals of respect only at the end of the year during the grand joint ceremony were these 4 spirit tablets brought forward to the Hall of Sacrificial Worship, where they received the same offerings as the emperors themselves. As we know, before the Qing Empire ruled all of China, there had been many conflicts and wars between the Ming and the rising Manchu power. 景祖塔克氏 and 显祖觉昌安, the father and grandfather of Nurhaci, were both killed by Ming troops. Because of that, Nurhaci deeply hated the Ming Imperial family, and he swore to fight against them and avenge his ancestors. At the end of the joint annual ceremony held here in the Imperial Ancestral Temple, music and songs were performed according to ancient rites. One of those songs had a very interesting inscription. It reminded the emperors that their ancestors were once killed by the Ming court, and that the Manchu people had risen to avenge them, building a new empire upon the fall of the old one. The lyrics also warned the later generations never forget history and always keep the spirit of strength and warfare. It's a fascinating moment in the ceremony where politics, revenge, and ritual all came together under the sound of music. In 1912, after the Xinhai Revolution, the Qing Emperor Puyi was forced to abdicate. According to the Treaty of Abdication between the Qing court and the new Republic of China, the ancestral temple still belonged to the imperial family for worship. But in 1924, after a military coup in Beijing, the abdicated Emperor Puyi was expelled from the Forbidden City, and the temple was taken over by the new government. From then on, it began a new life as a public park. Thank you everyone for watching. This is the end of today's episode. I will continue traveling across China, exploring more places where history still races. Please subscribe and stay tuned. See you next time.